the morning show here on Arise News. The suspension of the probe into the Interim Management Committee of the Niger Delta Development Commission in the House of Representatives has been generating a lot of criticism, particularly among civil society groups in Nigeria. Last weekend, 39 civil society organizations faulted the leadership of the House for suspending investigation into various allegations of corrupt practices. In their joint statement, the CSOs condemned the decision of the Parliament to drop legislative activities at a time when his role has become more critical than ever before. Joining us now from Arise Abuja studio for a conversation around this matter is Felix Ogbaudu, a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police and President Isoko Progressive Front. Welcome to the program, AIG Ogbaudu, retired. Thank you for joining us on the morning show. Well, you must have listened to the...
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you too. You must have listened to the introduction, the probe of the Interim Management Committee of the NDDC. Now, some CSOs are saying that the House of Reps or the National Assembly generally went on recess as an attempt to cover up and abandon the probe that they were carrying out into the affairs and finances of the NDDC. But the question some people ask is, I mean, are the lawmakers not entitled to recess? They even gave, an explanation that there will be some kind of committee work even while they are on recess. For you, what are the big issues? What exactly should we be focusing on?
Well, thank you very much. Let me start by thanking you for having me on this program. Now, first and foremost, our attitude towards combating corruption has not been too satisfactory, not too encouraging. You said it very right that, well, the House of Reps members, National Assembly per se, they're entitled to their recess, yes. But like they also know, and we all know, when the House or the Senate chamber is on recess, committees that are assigned very important and sensitive responsibilities stay back and address all these issues, especially the ones that require urgent attention. So a lot of us are really very disappointed that these matters, well, the ones that relate to corruption in relation to the NDDC, are being treated with levity. The type of speed we expected, we are not seeing it. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have in this country. What has become of that case? Nothing. Now here we are again with the NDDC situation. So my take is that we need to wake up. And at the Niger Delta, and I'm not particularly happy, the House of Reps Committee assigned this responsibility should please wake up and make sure that they intensify this investigation and let us get to the end. And let those that have misbehaved, misappropriated funds, are found to have been corrupt, engaged in corrupt practices, they should face the full wrath of the law. That is my position.
Well, indeed, thank you so much. As a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, what are your thoughts on the role of the anti-graft agencies? You've talked about the speed of this probe. Did you expect, what were your expectations by now? And as somebody from the region, like you rightly said, who do you hold accountable for the level of corruption and financial recklessness we are seeing from the Commission?
Well, the answer to your question is not far-fetched. The people appointed to be members of the NDDC board and those working there full-time are those who are responsible, held accountable. And like I said, we keep on treating corrupt practices with kid gloves. We're in a nation where the course of justice crawls at snail speed. In other political climes, it never happens this way. They're coupled with the fact too that in Nigeria, there's nothing like deterrence. And in the absence of deterrence, the culture of impunity is fueled. And that's what we're contending with now. Take a place like the entire Niger Delta region. So much revenue generated from there. So much revenue, funds assigned to them, allocated to them for development. But when you go there, from one of the states to another, there isn't much on ground to show for the funds allocated to this region. So that's it. Those to be held accountable, responsible, are those that are working there, starting from the MD, the various directors, and all of that. Contracts are awarded, they're not executed to conclusion, some are even abandoned. People are paid, mobilized to site to commence the work, nothing is done, and nothing happens to them. Because we keep on dancing a vicious circle, it's not the best for us, honestly. That's why the corruption is increasing on a daily basis.
Well, you talked about deterrence, and that's my question to you as someone who was part of law enforcement in the country. What did you expect to see? Some arrests, perhaps, some resignations, some sacks. What were your expectations for this probe?
Honestly, when it is concluded, when it's completed, they should make their recommendations. Like I said, those that are found culpable should face the full wrath of the law. They should be arraigned in court, should be charged to court. 2, some of them need to be sacked. Well, some of them need to be sacked. They need to vacate the positions they're occupying. They've lost their integrity. And even those that are serving have no regard for them anymore. They don't trust them. I see for somebody like us, somebody like me, I served in the police force for 35 years meritoriously. From 1976, after my youth service, I enlisted ASP and retired 2011 as an assistant for regional police. The way things are going, it is because one of our major problems, again, as a nation, is this practice of always having square pegs in round holes. Then a lot of sentiments are brought into play. A lot of underground forces are also playing. So these are things that are really frustrating the entire process.
Right,
so I expect that the House of Reps should come up and round up this investigation. Let us hear their recommendations and see how it will go.
Okay, right. I'd like to get the position of the Isoko Progressives Union. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. And I also like, the Isoko people to get the views, or what you might term the views of the Isoko people in general, because only recently, I think there was a story in the papers about the Isoko people complaining that certain projects, were done and passes through Isoko Nation, but the Isoko people are not going to benefit from this. So what is the plight, of the Isoko people on this issue of the NDDC, and in general, as regards the development of the Niger Delta, that doesn't get to them, that, makes the Isoko people look very marginalized?
Thank you very much for that question. I'm an Isoko person. I'm from the Isoko Nation, and to be very frank with you, to be very honest with you, we the Isokos are not happy at all. We're major contributors to revenue of this country from the oil sector. I think we have 2 major oil wells. And don't also forget, oil was discovered in Olobiri in Bayelsa State way back in 1956. The second place where oil was discovered was in Uzere in Isoko land. We contribute so much towards the center, yet right there on ground, we have nothing to show for it. I was discussing this issue with somebody that time, and the person was asking me, sir, do you have any federal presence even in the whole of Isoko Nation? I said, no. Of course, I told him on the lighter note, I said, well, the only federal presence we have in Isoko Nation are police stations. And he burst out laughing. And that is not the best for us. A lot of things require which can even be provided. And don't also forget, the Isoko Nation is not very large in terms of land mass. We have Isokos in Delta State. We also have Isokos in some parts of Bayelsa State. And we need things like tarred roads, functional healthcare facilities, good schools, electricity, skills acquisition centers, and all of that. But all of these are lacking, yet we contribute so much. and we're getting little or nothing out of it. I will not also forget to mention the fact too that some of our sons may be guilty, may be culpable. Some of them were awarded contracts, but they didn't give us the maximum we expected from them. So there must be ways of monitoring contracts that are awarded, and sanctions should be put in place for defaulters. You know, so that's why the Isoko man is not happy. You go to any part of Isoko land where I come from, there's nothing on ground to show for all the contributions to make towards the center. Like I said, no electricity, roads are not tarred, health facilities are not there. Even skills acquisition centers that ought to be in place so that the youths over there can learn something, a trade, to live on. Nothing. There's no way. So we really need to put on our thinking caps and do the needful in this situation. And one of the things that has actually saved the situation is that we, the Isokos, are peace-loving and law-abiding people. In some other parts of this country, they would have resorted to being confrontational, and it has worked for some others too. We're in a nation where if you are not violent, you don't confront government position, nobody listens to you. And it's not the best. So I want to use the opportunity to appeal to government that we, the Isokos, being law-abiding, not disposed to violence, we need to be listened to. Our needs need to be met and very urgently too, and adequately. Thank you.
Well, sir, a lot of people have criticized the lawmakers in the National Assembly, but how much time will you consider good enough for them to be able to conclude the probe that they are conducting, considering also at the same time that the NDDC has published a long list of legislators who are also contractors? Would they be enthusiastic about an expedited probe that will end up indicting them? However, there's another leg to it. In March, the federal government appointed lead auditors to carry out the audit. In August, the Federal Executive Council approved 8 field editors to look at 12,000 abandoned projects across the Niger Delta. If those field auditors alone are going to review 12,000 abandoned projects, they could claim that for the next 1 year or beyond, we'll still be on this issue of NDDC probe. What other steps would you like to recommend to the federal government in terms of fast-tracking the probe, if that will not result in shortchanging the process?
Well, in terms of numbers, figures, 12,000 is not a small figure. And that will require a lot of time to actually investigate, audit effectively. But that's not an excuse. You see, there are times you find ourselves in situations that we will need to work 24/7. Take the job of security, for instance. Security is 24/7 and it's everyone's responsibility. So when we have such issues, you can give them more time because the figures are much, yes. But that does not mean, and don't forget, in this country, we are very good at starting things, and at the end, they will just stop at the middle of nowhere. The whole thing is forgotten, swept under the carpet. If it were to be any of the law enforcement agencies and the corruption agencies that was doing this, Nigeria would have been shouting, says, oh, it's taking them too long, and all of that. So I think they need to also wake up. They need to put in more effort. If we think that that board of about 8-9 auditors, if the figure is too small, then you can break it up. Set about 4-5 groups. Each group to take about, out of 12,000, each group takes like 4,000 or something like that. And within a much shorter time, they will be done with it. So that's my take on that. It's like they're overburdened. What they're looking into is too much, so much. And don't also forget the issue of records. The issue of records. How much of this record do they still have in the NDDC offices in the Niger Delta? So they need to reach out to all of this. So we need to really bring in more hands to get involved in this auditing exercise that will get to the bottom of this problem. Let us know which contract was actually executed and executed satisfactorily. Then 2, let us know those that were not executed at all and fish out the contractors. the defaulting contractors, and they face the wrath of the law. They kind of remind me about the very first question you asked.
No, I said, are we not expecting too much from the lawmakers, considering the fact that the NDDC has since informed the public that many of these lawmakers were actually contractors to NDDC?
Well, that is a very sad aspect. It's like being a judge in your own case. What do you expect? So, and don't also forget, NDDC made that allegation on one hand. The National Assembly members of the House of Reps specifically denied the allegations. And if I were to have my way and to have my say, that is the point. At that point, you bring in a neutral body to look at what the NDDC has alleged and look at the denial of the House of Reps members. But as long as this thing is still within the purview of the House of Reps members, don't expect to get the very best. So my suggestion is that let a neutral body be brought in, let the House of Reps members step down from that investigation so that it can also be investigated on the allegations of they being beneficiaries of most of the contracts in Niger Delta region. And that's the only way to move forward. Anybody that's against what I've just suggested, just be rest assured, they are the people who do not want us to move forward. Selfish, self-serving interests, that's all that interests them. Because these are very, very weighty allegations. Weighty allegations. NDDC is saying these guys are involved, and they have the records. Don't forget some of the companies they may have used them to front for them, not necessarily owned by them directly. And that's what giving them the audacity to deny. I'm Felix Ogbaudu, for instance. If I don't get the corner, I wanted to move with the name of Ogbaudu and Co. or something like that, and I use the front, at the end of that, I would deny. And that's what's going on now. That's why I'm suggesting that a neutral body needs to come in to look at the allegations of NDDC, to look at the defense of House of Reps, so that people will not start saying that, oh, NDDC, because they've been boxed into a tight corner, they're trying to blackmail the House of Reps members. So the expectation is not too much. It's not too much. It is not too much. Okay. They need to do the needful.
We are almost out of time, and very quickly, I mean, you've talked about a neutral body about multiple times. Can you be more specific? What neutral body should we bring in here? And if you can, please respond. I wanted to weigh in on the debate on the relevance of this purpose vehicle, the interventionist agency of the NDDC. Some have said, you have said as an Isoko person, the Isoko people have not really benefited from any of this. So why should we continue to keep it and fund it and make it a conduit of corruption? What are your thoughts?
Well, I've said it before, I will say it again. My people have been so badly marginalized. That is not the contention, because there's nothing on ground to show. And we're not happy with that. And that is why my forum, the Isoko Progressive Forum, front, has come into place. That we can act as a voice for the Isoko nation, speak on their behalf, you know. Then, but the issue of this investigations, corruption here and there, like I said, if need be, we can even bring in the EFCC. The EFCC can be brought in. The EFCC has zonal offices everywhere. You have zonal office in Rivers, you have the head office here in Abuja, you have zonal office all over the place, in Lagos and all of that. So they can also be engaged. And we can even form a different body made up of operatives from all of these anti-graft agencies. Bring operatives from EFCC, from ICPC, from the Nigeria Police Force. All of them coming together to see Nigeria to work together. And a lot of these problems will be nipped in the bud. And like I said, the bottom line is this. In the absence of deterrence, impunity is fueled. We keep on dancing in circles. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody have been used as an example. Somebody talked about resignation at that time. Resignation is not in our culture, no matter what. It's only when you are sacked you can go. But for somebody on his own who thinks that he has done what is not right, It's not fair to it's conscience, not fair to God. Let me resign. It's not in our culture at all in Nigeria. So people never want to resign. So the bottom line is, let us go back to neutral body, I said. Bring operatives from these agencies to form that body and investigate the allegations against House of Reps members and the allegations against NDDC. Because the amount of money allocated to NDDC on a yearly basis over time is so big, is so huge, yet the entire region is just left like that. If people are just benefiting, making the entire Niger Delta dry, and it's not right, it's not fair.
Well, on that
that's
note,
my take on that.
On that note, we'd like to thank you very much, AIG Felix Ogbaudu, retired, for joining us on the Morning Show. Thank you very much indeed.